Hello, welcome to this edition of Spotlight brought to you by CREDEF, the International Center for Research, Interreligious Dialogue and Development of the Presbyterian Theological Seminary of the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon. This slot or spotlight will be dwelling on domestic violence awareness and advocacy activities led by CREDEF in the restive northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon experiencing crisis. So why a program on DV at the CREDEF?
In 2016, the crisis in the English-speaking regions of Cameroon became so serious that people witnessed a lot of poverty, and the Presbyterian Theological Seminary wondered what they could do. That is when we created the International Center for Research, Interreligious Dialogue and Development, as approved by Synod in 2018. As a result of such crisis and poverty, we sought funds from Kerk Nati, an NGO based in the Netherlands, and we offered humanitarian aid to the population. Because of such aid, people became empowered, women became empowered. The already existing fact that families were at home, women became empowered, and this brought about domestic violence. And that is when we started putting an eye on domestic violence.
Our domestic violence campaign strategy is twofold. We have advocacy and we have research.
In advocacy, we adopted the concept of raising workshops to bring people together, to train them. In this light, in June 2022, 50 pastors were brought together, 30 community leaders who were trained in order to go replicate the training in the field. They were the trainers who would get information to go and train others who could join them in the activity.
After the replication of the first DV workshop by the 50 pastors and the 30 community leaders, we experienced some challenges. The number that was trained was small to cover the two regions.
The second was the fact that those who came to attend the meetings were mostly women. And the challenge was, where were the men? So we started thinking on what do we do to get the men involved alongside the women. And the CREDEF came up with the training of the 26 leaders of men and 26 leaders of women in the 26 presbyteries which are found in the northwest and the southwest west of Cameroon.
Replication at the level of the communities. When these workshops are organized, the men do everything possible to make sure that their male pairs are part of the workshops. So the workshops are organized in a joint format and the participation is made open for both women and men.
We also produce a manual that they are using to sensitize their peers on the dangers of domestic violence. In the course of doing that, they are creating advocacy groups within the communities, because we think that the research center alone cannot do the job. We feel that by creating these advocacy groups, we'll be able to reach the population right to the suburbs.
Our second approach towards the fight against domestic violence is through research, and we led two research works. The first had to dwell on intimate partner violence in conflict zones, the case of the northwest and southwest, and the second one had to do with culture and domestic violence in the northwest and southwest.
Intimate partner violence in conflict zones, the case of the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. Our findings from 400 respondents were as follows. 80% of the respondents indicated that they have been perpetrating violence significantly on their intimate partners during this period of crisis. 57.9% indicated that they have been obliged to have sex with their partners against their will during this period. We also discovered that more women have suffered violence in the hands of their male partners than men have suffered in the hands of their female partners. We also discovered that those who grew up in families in which they were exposed to violence, either as victims or they witnessed violence, they later on became perpetrators, even in their intimate partner relationships. We had some effects of this intimate partner violence. We discovered that many of the respondents, they suffer from trauma. Some suffer from loss of self-esteem. Some have engaged in excessive drinking of alcohol, and some suffer from nightmares.
We research on culture and domestic violence. There is this general agreement that culture can promote domestic violence. And so we went out to investigate whether it is true. And we use as our area of study the Anglophone Cameroon. It is the northwest and the southwest regions of Cameroon. And in our findings, we discovered that culture, as it is misunderstood, does not really promote domestic violence to a greater extent. Because culture is the life of the people, the way they live, they speak, they eat, they dress, there are other cultural practices and religion, and that alone can never promote domestic violence. We realized from our findings that domestic violence in relation or linking it with culture is when the people go out and borrow other culture and they infringe into this cultural practice of the Northwest and the Southwest region of Cameroon. Their culture is good. Culture should instead be harnessed, developed and used as a tool to regulate the excess of domestic violence through continuous education on cultural practices, awareness creation and sensitization, promotion of dialogue on the populace, and call for the review of practices that exempt women from decision making.
After these efforts to combat domestic violence in the field, much is still left undone. We haven't reached out to the youths. As such, we are envisaging to engage youths into this program by organizing a workshop for youth leaders who will in turn train the other leaders in their respective groups. So we intend to mobilize resources to aid victims, because during counseling sessions, pastors have already started receiving numerous victims of this vice, and of course they need help. And we also believe that as we are gathering all these experiences, at the end of this exercise, our center will be able to launch courses wherein we train on how to deal with or manage aspects of DV.
To create an impact and to be very brief, our watchword is that the Presbyterian Theological Seminary Kumba in Cameroon, the International Center for Research, Interreligious Dialogue and Development, joined the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon to say no
to domestic violence. If you are interested in our programs and you want to partner with us, you can contact us on the contact details on the screen. Thanks for watching.